What if a single farmer's harvest didn't just feed a few, but fundamentally reshaped an entire city's future? This isn't a fairy tale. It's the incredible story of an unexpected bounty that redefined prosperity. Prepare to witness how one man, a few seeds, and an extraordinary yield changed everything for a sprawling metropolis on the brink of collapse. His name was Elias, a quiet man whose hands were as wrinkled and cracked as the ancient soil he worked every single day. He lived on the outskirts of the great city of Aethelburg, a place of towering steel and glass that had long forgotten the smell of fresh earth. To his neighbors, other farmers who grew predictable rows of corn and wheat, Elias's farm was a source of quiet amusement and gossip. Have you seen what old Elias is growing this year? His neighbor, Marcus, would often say, leaning on the fence that separated their lands, "More of those useless, twisting weeds. Okay, not a single fruit, not a single vegetable. The man will starve himself with his strange hobbies." Elias would hear them sometimes, but he never responded. He would just offer a gentle, knowing smile and continue his work. He dedicated his life to a strange, spiraling vine that, to the untrained eye, seemed utterly worthless. But Elias knew a secret. At dusk, when the world settled into shades of purple and gray, he would walk through the rows of his peculiar plants. In the fading light, their leaves would begin to emit a soft, ethereal glow, a quiet pulse of life that no one else bothered to notice. While Elias tended to his glowing secret, the city of Aethelburg was slowly dying. It was a death not of war or plague, but of neglect and scarcity. The city's massive power grid, once a symbol of its strength, now flickered and failed almost daily. In a small, cramped apartment in the city's forgotten district, a young mother named Lena would light a single precious candle. Her son, Leo, lay on a small cot, his breathing shallow, connected to a small medical device that needed electricity to function. Every time the lights went out, a cold fear would grip Lena's heart. "It's okay, my love," she would whisper to her son, her voice trembling. "The lights will be back soon." They weren't. The city's resources were stretched thin. Families had to choose between a warm meal and a warm home. A gray cloud of smog and despair hung over the towering buildings. A silent admission that Aethelburg's bright future had dimmed to a weak, sputtering flicker. What no one in that desperate city knew was that the answer to their prayers was unteamed a government policy or a corporate bailout. It was growing silently in Elias's fields, nurtured by the very hands they all mocked. The harvest that year was not one to be eaten, but one to be felt. The crop Elias had spent a lifetime perfecting was a revolutionary, living power source. He called them Luminara vines. These unique plants were biological wonders. Through a process Elias had discovered after decades of patient crossbreeding and observation, the vines had developed an extraordinary ability. They converted sunlight and soil nutrients not into sugar for fruit, but into a stable, potent form of bioenergy, which was stored in small, glowing nodes along their twisting stems. The science, as Elias would later explain, was as simple as nature itself. "You see," he would say, his voice soft and raspy, It's like a slow-burning fire that never goes out. The sun gives it life. The soil gives it strength and the sap. The sap holds the light. This sap, when passed through a special catalyst made of a unique compost he had developed over the years, released a clean, silent, and continuous stream of power. His small, weathered farmhouse was the first proof of his miracle.
Okay.
It had been off the city's failing grid for years. While his neighbors cursed the darkness during blackouts, Elias's home was always filled with a warm, gentle light. A single, large luminara vine, coiled like a protective serpent around a wooden frame in his yard, powered his entire life. It was a quiet beacon of self-sufficiency, a silent rebellion against the decay of the city. But no one had ever bothered to ask him how. The buzz started with a young, curious journalist named Isabella. She was tired of writing the same sad story every day, the story of Aethelburg's decline. She heard a strange rumor from a market vendor about an old farmer whose house never went dark. Skeptical but intrigued, she drove her small car out to the city's edge. She expected to find a madman with a noisy, illegal generator. Instead, she found a quiet old man, a garden of softly glowing plants, and the future, humming silently in a small wooden box connected to a living vine. Editor initially laughed at her story. A magic plant that makes electricity. Isabella, this isn't a children's book. She persisted, and her article, initially buried in the back pages of the city's newspaper, began to spread like wildfire. The city council of Aethelburg was in a state of panic. Their meetings were filled with shouting, blame, and the heavy weight of failure. They had tried everything, but the city was sinking. When Isabella's article reached them, most dismissed it as nonsense. But one council member, a young woman named Anya, who still believed in miracles, saw a flicker of hope. "What do we have to lose?" she argued passionately. "We are facing complete collapse. Are we going to ignore a potential solution? No matter how strange it sounds." Desperate and out of options, they agreed. They gave Elias a small, abandoned city park, a patch of dead grass and broken benches to prove his theory on a larger scale. The city watched, most with cynical amusement. But Elias, with the help of a few volunteers inspired by Isabella's article, went to work. He didn't just plant his vines. He healed the soil, nurtured it, and treated the dead park like a living thing. Within months, the park transformed. It became a breathtaking garden of glowing vines, a magical oasis in the heart of the decaying city. And then, one evening, Elias connected the main vine to the local power grid. The moment the switch was flipped, the entire surrounding neighborhood, which had been dark for hours, lit up. But it wasn't the harsh, flickering light they were used to. It was a warm, steady, golden brilliance. People poured out of their apartments, looking up at the streetlights in disbelief. Cheers erupted, followed by tears of joy. In her small apartment, Lena watched as her son Leo's medical device beeped steadily, its light a reassuring green. She looked at her son, then at the lit bulb hanging from her ceiling. And she began to cry, not from fear, but from overwhelming relief. It was the spark Aethelburg desperately needed. The transformation was breathtaking. Luminara farms began appearing on rooftops, in abandoned lots, and along highways, each one a glowing testament to Elias's vision. The city's lights stopped flickering and instead shone with a warm, steady brilliance that seemed to push back the years of despair. The ripple effect was immediate and profound. With energy costs plummeting, old factories that had been silent for years roared back to life. New industries dedicated to Luminara tech sprang up, creating thousands of jobs for the city's unemployed youth. The city's infrastructure was revitalized, powered by the very earth it was built on. But the true impact was on the people. Poverty rates fell as households were freed from the crippling burden of energy bills. Public services, from hospitals to schools, improved dramatically. A sense of collective purpose and pride surged through the city as citizens, from school children to the elderly, worked together to cultivate their new power source. A city that was once holding its breath in fear could finally, collectively, exhale in relief. The change in Aethelburg went far beyond just its power source. It sparked a new philosophy, a renewed connection to the natural world that the city had long forgotten. Elias's humble example showed them that the answer to their most complex problems wasn't more concrete and steel, but a deeper understanding of the soil beneath their feet. Cultural shift began. People started planting small Luminara vines in their apartment windows, not just for the light, but as a symbol of their city's rebirth and their personal connection to it. This reawakening of green consciousness led to a citywide movement. Community gardens, growing actual food, flourished next to the energy farms. Conservation and recycling became a way of life, not a chore. The city's architecture began to change, with new buildings designed to incorporate living walls of vines, blending the urban with the natural. They had moved from a culture of consumption to a culture of cultivation. They learned that true prosperity wasn't just about economic growth measured in stock prices and corporate profits, but about the holistic well-being of the people and their environment. It was a lesson taught not by an economist in a fancy suit, but by a quiet farmer with dirt under his fingernails. Now, in August of 2025, the city of Aethelburg is a thriving beacon of sustainability and innovation. Its skyline glows with a soft, clean light, a testament to the vision of one man. It is a place where technology and nature work in perfect harmony. The air is cleaner, the streets are safer, and the people are happier. Elias, now a celebrated but still humble old man, never left his farm. He took no payment, no awards, no titles beyond what he needed to live and continue his work. He had proven his point. The story of Aethelburg and its farmer became a powerful reminder to the world that the potential for monumental change often lies dormant in the simplest, most overlooked solutions. The future of a sprawling metropolis was saved not by a boardroom decision or a political decree, but by the quiet, unwavering commitment of one man to a single, extraordinary seed. He had shown them all that the prosperity of humanity and the health of nature are, and always will be, deeply and beautifully interconnected. They had laughed at his farm, but in the end, he had grown their future.